Hello. So in this video, I'm going to discuss argument evaluation a little bit more. We've talked about validity, but we know, and as we've seen in the last video, there's more to evaluate an argument than finding out whether or not it's valid. Because when we evaluate arguments, fundamentally we want to find out, is the argument give us a good reason to believe that the conclusion is true? And an argument's being valid is not sufficient for its having a true conclusion. So, what we saw in the last video, or in last unit, when talking about Paley's argument, was we decided that if an argument is valid and its premises are true, then the argument establishes the conclusion, because an argument like that is guaranteed to have a true conclusion, and obviously so. If the argument is invalid, or if one of the premises is false, then we saw that the argument does not establish the conclusion. So, just remember we have this terminology, valid. We say that an argument is valid means no matter what, the conclusion is true if the premises are true, and the argument is complete, no premises are left out. Okay, that sort of intuitive notion. So now I want to introduce a new notion, which we're going to call soundness. And soundness is describing something we're already familiar with. We're going to say that an argument is sound when it has two properties. It's valid, and it has true premises. So that's just what it is to be sound. So soundness is valid and also true premises. Okay. Such an argument is guaranteed to have a true conclusion, right? If the premises are true, and because it's valid, we know that the conclusion also has to be true. And we know that because when we look at the argument, we can say, yeah, it's a complete argument. The form by itself guarantees that if the premises are true, so is the conclusion. So sound argument is very powerful. It's obviously guaranteed to have a true conclusion, given that it's sound. It may not be obviously sound, but once you find out that it's sound, then you can say, aha, I know the conclusion has to be true. Are the premises true? Well, that's a different question. Is the argument valid? That might not be obvious. But once you discover that, yes, the premises are true and the argument is valid, there's nothing more to be said. You know that the conclusion is true. An unsound argument, on the other hand, what about its conclusion? Must its conclusion be false? In fact, no. An unsound argument might have a true conclusion, and it might have a false conclusion. It's being unsound. Those are both possibilities. The problem with an unsound argument is not that the conclusion isn't true. It's that if it's unsound, the truth isn't guaranteed, and the conclusion might be false. So it's not a good route to believing the conclusion. So what we want are sound arguments. We want valid arguments with true premises. So here are all the valid. I want to talk a little bit about why an unsound argument might have a true conclusion or might have a false conclusion, and just to make that really clear, because we can get confused about that sometimes. So okay, let's imagine that all the valid arguments are in this yellow circle, or oval, and all the arguments with true premises are in this blue oval. Okay, so where they overlap, those are the sound arguments. Those are all the arguments that are both valid and have true premises. And we know that, as we've been saying, if an argument is sound, so it's in that overlapping area, then it's guaranteed to have a true conclusion. But there are lots of other arguments with true conclusions besides the sound arguments. All of the sound arguments have true conclusions, so they're inside of the orange circle, and it's because all of them are inside the orange circle. That's a showing that sound arguments are guaranteed to have true conclusions. But other arguments can have true conclusions as well. Valid arguments can have true conclusions, or valid arguments with false premises can have true conclusions. Arguments that have true premises but are invalid can have true conclusions. So I want to just give some examples of some of these. So let's look at an argument. Premise 1, if I'm 50 feet tall, I am the tallest human. That's true. It's just a conditional. It doesn't say I am 50 feet tall. It just says if I'm 50 feet tall, then indeed I am the tallest human. Premise 2 says I am 50 feet tall. Now, that's not true. And the conclusion is I am the tallest human. Well, that's a false conclusion. I'm certainly not the tallest human. And let's think about this argument. Is it valid? Sure. It says if I'm 50 feet tall, I'm the tallest human. Premise 1. Premise 2 says I am 50 feet tall. If those are both true, then the conclusion also has to be true, and there's no more information we need, so it's valid, but it has a false premise, namely premise 2. So this is an argument that's valid, it has a false premise, and it also has a false conclusion. Let's look at another argument. If I am a car, I am alive. That's not true. I am a car. That's also not true. Conclusion, I am alive. That's true. So this is an argument with a true conclusion, and it's a valid argument. If I'm a car, I'm alive, and I am a car. Okay, so that's a conditional, and the first part of the conditional, if you have a conditional in the first part, the if part of the conditional, then you know that the rest of the conditional is true. So it's valid, but it has the false premise, I'm a car, and also the false premise, if I'm a car, I'm alive. So if we look at what we have here, we have two arguments that are valid and have false premises, but in one case the conclusion is true, and in the other case the conclusion is false. So what does this show? It shows that you can have arguments that are valid and have false premises. Do you know whether or not the conclusion is true or not? When an argument is valid but has false premises, you don't know. Okay, let's look at the opposite sort of example now. So premise 1, if I'm 50 feet tall, I am the tallest human. True premise. Premise 2, true. Premise 2, California is a state. Another true premise. Conclusion, I am the tallest human. Again, we have a false conclusion. In this case, the argument is invalid, right? It's not the case that if the premises are true, then so is the conclusion no matter what, and that's a complete argument. So it's definitely invalid, but the premises are true. If I'm 50 feet tall, I'm the tallest human. True. Premise 2, California is a state. True. Good. So those are both true. So true premises and invalid, and we get a false conclusion. Let's look at a second argument. Every car is a machine. That's true. I'm human. That's true. Conclusion, the earth is round. That's true. So here we have an argument with a true conclusion. This argument has true premises and a true conclusion, but it's invalid. It's not the case that no matter what, if the premises are true, the conclusion is true. The earth could have been shaped differently, even though every car is a machine and I am human. So here we have two arguments that are both invalid and that both have true premises, and their conclusions are different. One has a true conclusion, the other has a false conclusion. So we can summarize all this in a table. Suppose we have an argument that is valid and has true premises. Must the conclusion also be true? Yes, that's a sound argument. But suppose that the argument is valid and does not have all true premises. Is the conclusion true? Maybe or maybe not. And the same is true for the other cases where maybe it's valid, the argument is invalid, but does have true premises. Again, it doesn't have a true conclusion, maybe, maybe not. The argument is neither valid nor have true premises. I haven't given examples of these, but such an argument might have a false conclusion, but it could have a true conclusion. So what this shows is, to drive this point home, if the argument is sound, then the conclusion has to be true. If the argument is not sound, we don't know. Maybe it's true, the conclusion. Maybe the conclusion is not true. Who knows? We're not in a position to say just by knowing that it's an unsound argument. So what do I want to take away? You don't need to remember those specific examples that I went through. They were just illustrating some general points. So you want to know, first of all, what does it mean to say an argument is sound? It means that it's valid and has true premises. And we need to know that an argument that is sound, its conclusion is guaranteed to be true. So what does it mean to say an argument is unsound? It means that either it's invalid or has at least one false premise. And the conclusion of an unsound argument may be true, but it may not be. We don't know. These are the things you need to remember. And those examples that I went through, you can, if you think, oh, I want to remember why it is that an argument that's unsound may or may not have a true conclusion, let me go look at those examples. But you don't need to remember those. This is the key points. Sound, unsound, what do those terms mean, and when is the conclusion guaranteed to be true or false, or don't know. Okay, so we're going to be using this terminology as we move forward, so you do need to have it memorized.